So if that's the case, why not just let it easy for everyone to raise globally? Not to prevent global investment to come. The key is how to make sure when they started to come in, how do we make sure that they come in for investment purposes only, not to control certain things that is valuable to Indonesia.
Inilah Endgame. Halo teman-teman, saya seringkali ditanya di sosmed. Saya ingin ikut berkontribusi untuk Indonesia yang lebih keren di 2045. Baiknya mulai dari mana? Mungkin salah satu saran saya yaitu belajar public policy.
Nah, itulah pentingnya public policy.
To change is definitely also policies, right? Dan untuk mendeliver itu, tadi butuh teknologi, butuh uang, dan butuh policy.
Nah, pemahaman terhadap analisis kebijakan itu memungkinkan kita untuk mengaktualisasikan solusi untuk berbagai permasalahan, apalagi yang sifatnya struktural. Tidak hanya di pemerintahan, tapi juga di dunia usaha maupun non-profit. Mantan Sekjen PBB Ban Ki-moon, Perdana Menteri Singapura Lee Hsien Loong, dan jurnalis Rachel Maddow, semuanya adalah lulusan jurusan Public Policy. SKPP Indonesia, sekolah public policy pertama di Indonesia dengan bahasa pengantar bahasa Inggris, sedang membuka penerimaan mahasiswa untuk batch terbaru. Untuk detail mengenai program dan cara mendaftar, atau sekedar berkonsultasi mengenai rencana karir teman-teman ke depan, hubungi SKPP Indonesia melalui link yang ada di deskripsi. Now back to the show. Halo teman-teman, hari ini kita kedatangan Vince Iswara, CEO dari Dana. Vince, terima kasih bisa datang ke acara kita.
Happy to be here, Pak. Very honored.
Oke. Kita tuh biasanya ngobrol panjang, tapi di awal waktu tuh mengenai masa kecil narasumber. Cerita, Anda lahir di Jakarta, terus
Benar.
sekolah di mana, terus bisa keluar negeri, terus bisa sampai ke Dana tuh gimana? Silakan.
Oke, siap, Pak. Jadi saya lahir di Jakarta. My parents itu dua-duanya keluarganya udah lama di Indonesia. Jadi my father itu dari Malang, my mom itu dari Madiun. That's great story. Itu benar-benar I love hearing that story. Karena my father itu sama my mom go to Jakarta itu melalui kereta api.
Ketemunya di kereta api atau
enggak, itu sebelumnya
duluan?
udah ketemu. Jadi
Okay.
mereka itu waktu di Madiun Malang dari kecil itu dikenalin gitu ya. My father dikenalin sama adiknya my mom. Terus ya they started since they were very young. They got married there. Terus pertama kali mereka mau benar-benar usaha gitu, venture kan, mereka ke Jakarta gitu. I don't know if I should tell the story to my, oh well, it's okay, it's a long time ago. So my father goes to Jakarta without paying.
Oh, okay. All forgiven.
And how he did it without paying, he presented his journalist card, fake journalist card, saying I'm a journalist.
Wartawan. Oh, oke. Bukan wartawan di mana. Oke.
Yeah. Terus I have a news story that I need to go to Jakarta. Terus dia ke Jakarta. Terus dia mulai started dari itu. Jadi mereka itu adalah benar-benar keluarga entrepreneur from very beginning. And my mom and my dad itu started together. Wow. Jadi they've been partner their whole life.
Bisnis apa?
They still do. Mereka do a trading company. Trading company brought in machines gitu from Germany, from Japan, from other areas in the world into factories in Indonesia.
Oke. Sampai sekarang?
Sampai sekarang.
Wow.
Yes.
Oke. Terus lahir di mana dulu di Jakartanya?
I forgot arasnya.
Okay.
I have in my mind the pictures-nya gitu, ada gitu. Masih tempatnya udah masih kayak sekolah-sekolah yang sekarang gitu, kayak kos-kosan gitu. Cuma hospital and I was a very very little baby. Mereka pikir itu petit banget jadinya. Cuma sekarang I'm taller than my parents. And yeah, it's a
sekolah di
I would say I have a very lovely childhood sih.
Very good.
My parents are great, mereka akur. I remember gitu, my first trip ever when I was young itu ke Danau Toba. Ada fotonya waktu 1 tahun. And just sedikit gitu, jump to the future. And I went back to Toba just last year again.
Udah berubah banyak.
Oh, I love it.
Infrastrukturnya udah jauh lebih bagus.
Bagus sekali.
Tapi indah sekali.
Indah, bagus sekali. Saya pergi ke itu tempatnya Bung Karno. Oh my God, so nice.
Itu bisa mirip kayak
Geneva.
Lake Como.
Yes.
Iya kan?
Yes, Lake Como.
Itali.
Ya betul.
Dikitarin sama banyak sekali aktivitas dan komunitas.
Bagus banget gitu. Saya ke Samosir, saya juga tinggal sehari di Dairi, experience gitu. Kan kita waktu sana itu lagi sedikit fast forward, nanti story lebih banyak lagi untuk gimana empowering local UMKM supaya go digital gitu. Jadi I go to areas around Danau Toba, liatin mereka kayak gimana, problemnya kayak apa, and so many things that, oh my God, there's just so many potentials ya di Indonesia itu. Okay, let's go back to the stories. Jadi, when I was I had a very lovely childhood. I have 2 younger sisters. They're a bit far apart from me. So my second sister is 5 years apart, and my third sister is my first sister is 5 years apart. My second sister is 6 years apart. So we had a pretty good age gap. When we were younger, we fought a lot. And biasa kan gitu. Terus my sister was very smart. Very smart. I mean, all of you who have a brother and sister, or you have children, tell your children to do this. I love to read. I love reading, right? Since I was little, nggak tahu kenapa. Terus, in order for us to be akur, what my sister did, she actually bought books, bought manga comic books for me. Keep giving me books to read. And then we become so peaceful because we got the same interest gitu kan. Terus kita juga bisa baca together, we can share it. I buy books for her, she bought book for me. So that was funny.
Anda sukanya buku apa? Fiksi atau non-fiksi?
I love reading.
Apa aja?
Apa aja.
Okay.
So there's always a question: which one is my favorite book? Or I don't have any.
Okay.
I love reading, and from any genre.
Okay.
I love fictions. I love non-fictions. I love documentary. I love historical. I love business books. I love futuristic concept. I love books. I love reading since I was small.
Saya juga kebetulan suka baca, tapi kalau ditanya preferensinya apa, lebih non-fiksi daripada fiksi. Nggak tahu gimana, kayaknya lebih kena. Bukan, ya bisa juga sih baca yang fiksi, tapi lebih nyetrum. Gitu. Tapi that's good kalau bisa baca dua-duanya. In equal proportions.
I love story. Dalam arti gini, I love story that resonate. Itu for me, that's more important. Makanya doesn't matter for me fiction or non-fiction as long as it resonate.
Okay.
That for me, then it becomes a beautiful piece.
Terus SD, SMP, SMA di mana dulu?
SD, karena kita dulu tinggalnya di utara, di daerah Pluit, jadi SD, SMP saya di Tarakanita. Terus SMA saya ke Semak 1. Itu at the time still sekolah yang paling intens. Kenapa disebut intens? Karena itu satu-satunya sekolah SMA atau apapun juga ya. Itu yang mulai jam 7 pagi, selesai jam 3 sore. Terus Senin, dulu ingat kan kita semua itu Senin sampai Sabtu loh. Tapi Sabtu setengah hari kita itu jam 7 sampai jam 12. Jadi setengah harinya normal bagi yang lain. Nah, setelah selesai sampai jam 3 sore, hari-hari biasa, itu biasa kita les lagi. Karena anak-anaknya kompetitif semua. Jadi jam 7 pagi sampai jam 7 malam itu biasa semua academics tuh. It's very intense, tapi I feel grateful juga. Karena ketemu tuh orang-orang pintar tuh kayak apa. Yang benar-benar yang genius gitu. Itu World Silver Olympic Medalist of Mathematics. Itu di zaman saya tuh. Terus nanti ada juga apa namanya National Physics Champion. Gitu-gituan semua orang-orangnya gitu.
Sekarang pada kemana aja tuh yang dulu juara?
Banyak jadi scholars.
Oke.
Tapi ya amazing gitu, hebat, banyak jadi scholars, terus ada banyak juga yang jadi very accomplished professionals. Dulu ada temannya pernah jadi CEO-nya GE Capital Indonesia, pernah jadi, terus sekarang juga jadi one of the partner in Accenture, kayak gitu. Jadi ya very accomplished lah, karena mereka pintar-pintar semua. Ya. Over there I'm standard. I won't say that I'm top of the class.
Bukan patokan kok SMA.
But one thing that I a bit regretted and also a bit gitu in my academics when I was younger. Just a bit regretted. And I wish I could have learned it sooner, which I learned later on in life. Put more time studying. Dalam arti gini, I process things pretty fast.
Okay.
So because of that, I took it for granted. Jadi I study usually a day before or a few hours before, a lot of times. Cuma because I don't know what's the reason. Itu sih. For me, academics is just about achieving grade kan.
Yeah.
The reason is just get a good grade. Cuma then what gitu.
Yeah.
Jadi good grade, yes, masuk ke ranking, maksudnya you can be pride to your friends and families. Cuma at the end of the day, the sense of purpose-nya itu masih sedikit kurang resonate with me. So for me, it's like as long as I can get good enough, that's good enough for me. Jadi for me, good enough means that then I just need to study like a day before. Itu yang sedikit regret. Later on in life, then I got to learn gitu, what I studied actually matters.
Yeah.
What I studied can actually be used for something. Itu yang nggak sadar gitu.
Yeah.
Pas sadar baru it's like, oh okay, I can put my full dedication to it.
Tapi ada juga pengakuan bahwa banyak yang kita pelajari atau kita belajar itu nggak relevan juga dengan era yang sangat digital sekarang ini kan.
Yes, gini.
Nah, ini mungkin poinnya mereka adalah apakah sistem pendidikan atau kurikulum itu harus dirubah? Yeah.
Completely understand your point. And then sometimes when I gitu look back ya, kayak di Indonesia gitu. Dulu zamannya saya itu ada sekitar 12 mata pelajaran waktu SMA ya.
Yeah.
Sebenarnya make sense nggak? Karena gini, I don't think anyone can be good at 12 good things gitu.
Yeah.
12 subject matters.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can be very good at 12 subject matters.
Yeah.
It's too much. Terus dalam arti kan kalau mau jadi juara satu, you have to be good at majority of them, right? Karena apalagi kayak di SMAK 1, you have to be very good at all of them.
Yeah.
Karena competition-nya is very crazy. Terus kalau udah lulus, would you use these 12 subject matters? Nah itu, jadi pertanyaannya it's more on should you specialized?
Yeah.
Kan kalau sekarang itu kan
Generalize or
specialization,
specialize,
ya kan? Specialization matters gitu. Kalau generalize ya you can good, but I think you're gonna be stuck somewhere because somebody else gonna be specialized in certain things.
Yeah.
Nah kalau yang dulu itu kalau saya merasa dengan kurikulum dengan trying to do good in everything, then what you learn is you trying to do good because of the process. Yeah. So you're trying to be good at the process.
Yeah.
You're not trying to be good at something that resonate gitu.
Yeah.
Nah itu yang emang I realize juga after so long gitu ya. Because if I'm good at a process, I'm probably not going to be entrepreneur. I'm probably going to be, going into some, large corporations and, be effective in making sure the corporation runs well. Tapi karena I'm much more passionate, when I do things, I have to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
Kalau nggak passionate about it and I don't give myself fully, then that's why I realized I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because when I'm passionate about it, itu benar-benar everything I put into it, end to end, from the moment I wake up until I sleep, until every day kalau ada waktu, I think about it all the time gitu. Jadi nggak ada waktu kosong. Nah, because of that, I do things that I have the ability to get ahead.
Yeah.
Itu sih.
College ke Pennsylvania.
So yes,
Yeah.
after I graduated gitu high school, at the time gitu, in my mind, back again masih gitu nggak tahu too much about the world. I always think I want to be engineer. Kenapa? I don't know. I just want to be engineer. Dulu kalau kita kecil ngomongnya saya pengen jadi insinyur. Selalu gitu. Dapat dari mana saya nggak ingat juga gitu. Selalu saya pengen jadi insinyur.
Atau insinyur, dokter atau insinyur.
Dokter atau insinyur, iya kan? Waktu kecil kan selalu gitu, dokter atau insinyur. Pokoknya no matter what, atau satu lagi astronot. Cuma yang ketiga kan, it's very far-fetched ya.
Yeah.
So jadi between dokter, insinyur atau itu astronot, saya pilih insinyur. And jadi pas saya graduated dari high school, sebelum graduated saya have a choice of school gitu, apa di Indonesia apa di luar negeri. Saya decided that I want to be engineers. Terus kita ngelihat ada kesempatan luar negeri ya, karena parents they're doing pretty well, so they can afford to send me to overseas gitu. Jadi saya merasa I want to try going to overseas. And kenapa ke US gitu juga kan? I think all of us when we were small kita selalu benar-benar mimpi gitu, US itu it's a land of opportunity, US itu land of freedom. Terus waktu itu kan zamannya Ronald Reagan, and everything is so the 80s ya, it's the very very strong and US world centric kind of mindset gitu ya. Jadi I want to try to be there gitu. Nah, terus jadi I decided that I want to go to a good engineering school. Terus saya once again, blessed, and also at the same time, I feel a bit stupid. I only applied to one school, and I got accepted. And at the time, it's a top 25 school of engineering in US. It's called Lehigh University.
Ya, tempatnya Lee Iacocca.
Chrysler. And at the time, he was legendary as well, right? How he built Chrysler.
Yeah.
So then I applied to that school, and I got accepted, and that's it. Gitu. Langsung pergi ke sana. Pas sampai sana, I also because saya kan sekolah di Semak 1. I took a lot of we all get educated a lot with math, and saya juga itu di physics, department fisik kan. Kalau SMA kan dibagikan dulu kan, ada fisik, bio atau sosial gitu kan. I took yang physics.
Okay.
And because I learned so much about math and physics, I took a placement test waktu di sekolah. I shouldn't, because otherwise I can padded my grade better gitu. Easy A. So I took physics, I took calculus 1 and calculus 2, and I passed all of them. And I was the only one in the whole damn school.
Yang juara-juara tadi itu nggak?
Karena nggak ada yang lihat ke tempat ini.
Oke.
Jadi when I was there, I took this placement gitu. I was the only one in the whole room. Aku kok kenapa ya lainnya nggak itu? Kan I nggak kepikir gitu, kenapa nggak ada yang ngambil ya? Oke. Ternyata semua mikir, ya for them it's easier to get an A, why don't just take it gitu kan? Ya udah, jadi I took it.
Tapi you save time kan?
I save time. Cuma then I realized gitu waktu di sana. Pas sampai ke kelasnya baru sadar. Gila, I know formulas, I don't know how to make them. Di sana mereka diajarin basicnya gitu. Gimana formula itu dapetnya gimana, cara itunya, why you use this formula. Jadi kalau dibedain pertanyaannya gitu, di switch around, tetap kita bisa re-engineer gitu. Kita bisa membuat lagi formula dari depan gitu. At the time kan jago formula, karena pas di Indo itu diajarin formula itu bisa ada 400 formula in your head gitu. Ya pakai ini, case ini formula ini, case ini formula ini, jadi udah jagonya formula gitu. Pas dirubah-rubah bingung. I got not a good grade in the first year karena baru ternyata harus belajar mulai lagi. Nah itu yang started to realize, the world is not as simple as that gitu. And when you have to do something you better understand deeply what you want to do.
Sekali itu.
Betul.
Yeah, kan?
And then also engineering. Makanya until today I'm doing the tech kan, karena I love technology. And for me technology is something that help people life. I love it. Cuma I also realized that I don't think I can make an impact if I am entirely at a lab gitu. This really, itu my honest opinion gitu when I was there gitu. Karena saya selalu ngelihat bahwa kerjaan saya tuh benar-benar pelajarannya tuh semuanya di lab gitu. I can do semiconductors. I can basically build a logic semiconductor. Logic gate, Fourier transform, Z transform, modus gitu, gimana cara merubah current gitu, from electricity current into digital bits itu 1 and 0. I actually made a modem when I was young itu at the time. I know how to program in assembly language. If you talk about language, I know assembly language, Fortran, Pascal, C++, Basic.
Yang sekarang Python segala bisa ya? Easy.
I don't think it's going to be hard because it comes from that foundation.
Basicnya itu.
But I did not learn Python.
Yeah.
Itu kan udah much later on.
Yeah.
So when I realized that engineering itu banyaknya itu benar-benar you are working in this very close environment. Of course among your peers and everything, which is they're very smart as well, right? Cuma I don't see immediate impact to the people.
Yeah.
So I felt like that's not my calling. I felt like I want to be able in a positions where I can help people use technology instead of just trying to develop something yang mungkin have impact, mungkin have not. Because as a researcher, that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
You try to do something, but it might have a long, it might be very long until it has impact. It might not even go there. So I decided at the time that I want to switch major because I realized that
tahun kedua.
Itu tahun I'm a bit late juga, tahun ketiga. Tahun ketiga. So I already basically halfway or almost 2/3 of the way in terms of the engineering to graduate before I decided that I don't want to do it anymore because I felt like I was, that's not my true calling.
Wow.
So then I decided that I want to move. That's why then I moved to...
Tapi Anda backtrack a bit. Anda bisa hardware dan software.
Yes.
Preferensinya yang mana? Lebih ke hardware atau
software? Because hardware is very it's very specific ya. Let's put it that way. Itu jadi hardware itu it's actually not that complicated and 1-0 is about how you can make sure you can calculate the 1-0 faster gitu. Makanya kalau dilihat itu semuanya how to all the improvement we have the last 20 years is how to make sure that it can go the gigahertznya can be faster and faster and then people can calculate faster. So then it can create a result. It's not that complicated because material science itu doesn't move as fast.
Betul.
And Lehigh at the time was one of the best material science unit in US in terms of the school.
Yeah.
Saya udah lihat tuh waktu zaman itu, that was 1993-94 ya. Itu udah ada fiber optic, udah ada yang broadband fiber internet, itu semua udah ada gitu materialsnya. Yeah. Cuma they don't move fast karena material science it's a very ground to elements yang di earth gitu lah ya.
Betul.
Terus kalau saya lihat dari situ, makanya it don't move as fast. And I want to be in software because the applications can move faster.
Lebih nyambung ke humanity juga.
Betul.
Yeah.
But back again, in your computer engineering, you are working on the platform and infrastructures layer, not on the what we call the business or a consumer interaction layer. Jadi also slow. So then I decided that no, that's not where I want to be. I want to be impactful faster.
Okay.
That's why I switched to business major.
Okay. Pindah lagi ke California.
Pindah ke California to Loyola University. I want to switch to a business major. Cuma at the time back again kan business kalau kita ngeliat ada few angle kan. You want to be in business and you can be in marketing, you can be in HR, you can be in business development. I decided I want to be in finance. Why? Because that's closer to me. I'm good at math. I'm very logic, and I came from an engineering background, so the closest to me is finance. So that's why I choose the finance major.
Okay.
Terus I graduated. And then after I graduated, that's US kan, di Loyola. I decided I want to continue into a master degree. And I choose to study in Japan.
Di Waseda.
Di Waseda. Few reasons as well. I actually got accepted as a accounting major master degree in USC because I took a GMAT and I did pretty well. But I decided that I want to go to Japan because I felt like if I already understand the Western way of thinking, I want to understand also the Eastern way of thinking.
Yeah.
And for me, if in order to be part of, like doing business in Asia, that's what I want to do, right? I don't want to be just stuck in US, continuing my career path there. But I know that I want to go back to Asia. I need to be able to have two
Barat dan Timur dikombinasi.
mindsets, Barat and Timur. So I choose Japan because at the time Japan was, that was 90s, right? Japan is still at the top of the world in terms of the technology, in terms of business-wise. So that's why I took an opportunity to go to Waseda.
Ngambil?
MBA, and specifically in strategic management.
Okay.
Why specifically strategic management? Well, because at the time, I still remember, consultants and investment banking was all the rage, right? Everybody wants to be in consultant. Everybody wants to be in investment banking. So, and the way to get there is strategic management. I was a time of I was not yet set on, specifically I have to do this no matter what kind of mentality, more on what's in at that time. But I also feel fortunate, right? Because, because of that, I got to learn gitu. Apa sih sebenarnya yang all this consultant talk about, gimana sih mereka bisa jadi, like such a important part of this, business world.
Yeah.
But I also realized that's not my true calling as well.
Yeah.
So when I took my MBA, it happens that I took a lot of credits early on during that time, and I finished all my credit requirements to graduate very early. The first year, I finished everything first year.
Wow. As opposed to 2 years.
2 years.
Okay.
Yes, it's a 2 years program, but I finished a lot of the credits in the first year. Okay. That also gave me an indication that actually I'm not stupid. I'm actually I have a brain.
Tervalidasi.
In that part, yes. Genetically, I'm okay. I have the brain, but then I also realized I need passion in order for me to fulfill it, right? To fulfill my true potentials. And that is when the time I actually realized, one, that I have the capability, two, that if I put something fully, that I can do things good.
Tapi gini Vince, ini kalau saya lihat akhir-akhir ini perusahaan-perusahaan teknologi di dunia lah yang gede-gede, itu mereka ada kecenderungan untuk merekrut engineers. Kalau di tahun 80-an, 90-an tuh yang laku tuh MBA kan.
Yes.
Bahkan di perusahaan-perusahaan, nggak usah sebut nama lah, di Silicon Valley, mereka agak-agak anti sama MBA sekarang. Perusahaan Anda sekarang, itu mayoritas engineer. Ada nggak sih unsur, karena Anda tuh background-nya ada engineering-nya, yang bikin Anda tuh lebih komplit, bisa menakodai. Dibanding kalau Anda nggak ada background engineering sama sekali, terus hanya ngambil finance sama MBA, would you have reached the same point as quickly?
It's a very hard question, not easy to answer. Tapi kan because I happen to have that career, that path. Jadi for me, it's kind of given, But I would say, knowing what I know now, it actually doesn't matter what your background is, as long as you're good at it. Because kayak sekarang nih kita kayak di Dana, for example, right, we're not necessarily only hiring, people who has engineering background and engineering experience before. We're not necessarily hiring based on where you graduated
Yeah. I don't believe that either. Yeah.
We care more about one. Kalau engineers, when we test you on a specific area that you are applying for our company, and whether or not the result actually shows your capability.
Betul.
So by merit, right? If you're an engineer, if you're part of that, if you graduated from BINUS, if you graduated from overseas, if you work in a very big companies, it doesn't matter.
Betul.
We have to test your capability. So you join us by merit. That's one. If you're non-engineers, specifically, we also did the same. We asked you, what is your background, for example, in terms of marketing? Have you have an experience with FMCG? Because why? Because we are a consumer business. So, and our consumer business, it reached a mass scale. So have you had experience with handling the, a type of campaign that handle the masses? Do you understand about brand? Do you understand about digital marketing? Depends, right? Specific areas, everything. Kalau mereka good at that, regardless you have engineering background or not, we don't require you to have it.
Okay.
So once again, it's more about focus and specialization.
Yeah.
It's not about you need to have an engineering.
Yeah.
For me, engineering is a skill, not a tech knowledge is a skill.
Yeah.
It's not a part of your character.
Yeah.
You can learn it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, technology is tools.
Yeah.
Technology, it's not human element.
Yeah.
Itu sih.
Ini saya mau agak tarik dikit nih. Sorry, kita agak lompat. Tapi ada beberapa pertanyaan yang berkembang dari ini. Kalau kita bandingkan ya, pemikirannya si Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
Itu kan intinya kan spesialisasi.
Yeah, I said that a lot in the company. Yes, I do.
Dibandingkan si David Epstein, yang mengedepankan late specialization. Tapi melakukan spesialisasi itu di akhir atau di ujung itu justru lebih bagus selama dia udah berkecimpung atau terekspos dengan banyak sekali dimensi. Itu justru memperkaya spesialisasi yang dilakukan di ujungnya. Apakah yang Anda maksud tuh yang patut kerja dimanapun termasuk di Dana? Itu kalau bisa yang late specializer. Karena dia akan lebih komplit atribut-atributnya sebagai spesialis. Atau Anda lebih nyari yang profil yang 10,000 hours. Dari lahir sampai sekarang dia hanya akuntansi, atau ngelas, atau programming.
So, I think both ideas actually are just a method for me. At the end of the day, it's a method of how, what is the result of who you are. And when I talk to anyone, when I ask, even in a company, even in a town hall, right? I want to know whether or not you want to be better in these things compared to anyone else in what you want to do. I'm not saying the best, because best meaning you reach certain plateau or there is a threshold. I'm saying better. I want anyone in our company to be always better of their previous self, of what they're trying to do. Jadi kalau kita ngomong dari better, one of the method is to be better is keep doing what you're doing 10 hours a day for 10 years, right? I said that a lot in company. At the same time, in our company, really in our company, when you are a specialist in something, we also tell you, try the other things. Why? Because I want you to start seeing the full scope of what we're trying to do. Because if you're good at one thing but you lock yourself in this narrow point of view and you don't understand what's going on in the others, you might be missing some things that the other find relevant. So for me, it's just a method. It's a how you get to that betterment of yourself. It's up to you. But if you don't do either, so even for example gini kan, if you're at the end gitu, tapi after that you don't put yourself 10 hours a day for the next whatever years it is, then
Sama aja
somebody
bohong.
will overtake it.
Betul.
So both sides are just a method.
Ya.
And you can decide where you are at that point of time.
Ya. Saya juga berpikir bahwa kalau kita tuh fokus, tapi pindah ke dimensi yang lain, kita fokus juga di situ. Apapun yang kita rasakan selama ini, termasuk yang sebelum-sebelumnya, itu membuka wawasan dan meningkatkan intuisi.
Agree.
Dan semakin intuisi kita semakin meningkat atau semakin kaya lah, semakin bijaksana kita. Dan semakin kita bisa memitigasi resiko yang jangka panjang. Dibanding kalau kita tunnel vision aja.
Betul, betul.
Kalau tunnel vision tuh kita bisa memitigasi resiko, tapi itu sifatnya jangka pendek kalau menurut saya.
Betul. Tapi at the same time, be careful. Dan jangan sampai fokusnya pindah-pindah keseringan juga.
Oh iya.
Itu
Pasti.
itu
Jadi
yang
kalau udah
ditakutin.
sampai ke tempat parkir yang baru, nongkrong di situ.
Betul.
Iya kan? Jangan geser-geser. Tapi kalau udah waktunya untuk geser, kita pindah ke tempat parkir yang satu lagi.
Ya.
Iya,
And whatever learning you take from previously, you can do it again.
betul.
Betul. I agree with you completely with
Betul.
that.
Nah, yang satu lagi, yang nyambung dari tadi pernyataannya Vince. Ini kan dulu tahun 80-an, 90-an tuh kalau kita baru lulus, kita pengennya kerjanya ke itu atau itu. Iya kan?
Ya.
Tapi sekarang kalau kita lihat anak-anak muda, ya, including you, itu pada mau jadi entrepreneur semua. Beda kan? Dan apakah itu bagus atau enggak? Maksudnya, kalau saya sih intuitively, I think it's better dibanding sebelum-sebelumnya. Karena semakin Indonesia tuh menjadi entrepreneurial, itu semakin bagus.
Ya.
Ya kan?
For me, once again, right, I think this follow up to tadi yang the methods gitu, focus specializations and in or doing a lot of things at the end of it, becoming focused. So I think that's the same thing juga. For me, it's also given, right? Because after my MBA, even before I finished itu, my MBA, I already started my company. So I already started on the entrepreneur path. I think way ahead gitu. And I will never take it back, and there is absolutely no regret. And for me, I think that's the best decision that I ever made. And I love it, and then that's me. That's resonate with me as well.
Yeah.
Cuma along the way, I also feel gini. I wish I could have learned from organizational structures, how to build scalable business, how to scale your team, how to create a culture early on, how to make sure that everybody in your companies is actually able to work in the same path together. Because when you're an entrepreneur, especially early on, if you started early, you tend to want to micromanage a lot of things. That's the biggest flaw of entrepreneur. Biasanya it's like I want to, I don't trust you enough. Okay, I'll do it. I don't trust you enough. I'll do it. Sampai semuanya. Okay, I'll do it everything myself. Then you cannot grow, right? Then you get stuck gitu. Then when you started to delegate a bit more, terus baru sadar, wait, I'm different than you. I delegate when you. My thinking is left. Your thinking is right, and it doesn't go along gitu. Nah, those are the kind of a lot of the skills that a more established organization gitu udah punya gitu. And I wish at the time I can learn that, so then I can build from very early on a scalable business that can be very, very long sustainable, right? Long-lasting business. Well, I did it anyway because I did a lot of trial and error. This is like my 6th or 7th company, and I did a lot of learning.
Talk about some of the less than successful ventures you went into. Karena kalau menurut saya itu penting untuk pemirsa atau penonton. Karena orang tuh kalau ngelihat orang sukses, dipikir dia tuh sukses terus gitu loh. Iya kan? Biasanya sukses tuh atau kesuksesan tuh ujungnya kegagalan. Iya kan?
Yep. It's a lot of learning curve. Jadi a lot of things ya. Jadi kalau kita ngomong dari my first business gitu, when I started, right, even before I graduated, wonderful ideas. It's yes, wonderful ideas. At the time, it was very revolutionary. I get a lot of BCGs and McKinsey consultants come to our, come to our office and say, "Wow, what you're doing is, it's very, very interesting, and it's not even being done yet in the Western world." Okay, that's a bit of a story, right? When I started, I have once again, I'm very passionate about technology. I want to share my passion of technology to the society, and when I studied in US, I was at the time when the first internet boom it happened, right? It was the Netscape era, the first version of Yahoo era. I don't know if anybody of you ever heard of Netscape.
Yeah. We went through that.
Yep, AOL. Oh my gosh. That was very early. So I went through at the very beginning, Terus it's like, oh, this is so interesting, I really want to share to people as much as possible, kan. Tapi terus when I was still there, and then when I moved to Japan, it was the first broadband era. It's like, I don't know if you remember, kalau dulu pakai modem, you heard the, all this sound, right? Those kind of sound, and I made that during my engineering time.
Wow.
And it was very slow. Terus kalau di Jepang, merasa, oh, this is what broadband means. We can start video sharing, you can start everything, we can be animated, everything is so fast, and all the things that you need to search in the internet gitu, bisa yang tadinya will take hours gitu, untuk few subjects, sekarang within minutes. Sometimes seconds is done. So I want to share that. So that's why my first business, we created this technology company, technology center, we call it technology center, that actually open for everyone to come to use per daily basis, per hour basis, per weekly, per monthly basis. And then we have broadband internet. We have a lot of desk and meeting rooms and terminals. So people can use it, people can work there, people can have meetings there, people can work remotely there.
Sounds eerily familiar.
Exactly right. And every week we have an event by technology companies to share their product, to share their new launches. Intel, Microsoft, CBN at the time, Chip, Majalah Chip, Adobe, Autodesk. They all do that regularly in our office. And this is a facility of what currently we call co-working space.
Terlalu visioner.
2001. So I learned a very hard lesson at the time. You might be ahead. You might have great ideas. But if the market does not accept it yet, then whatever good ideas you have might not work. Most likely will not work.
Yeah.
So you have to understand the market needs. The market needs and what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's my first lesson. But I feel grateful as well with that, because after that we have a lot of contact with the technology companies. We have a lot of reputations building from there. So I get a chance to work with some of them, and I incubated a few companies. There's a company that we're doing a broadband providers, internet broadband providers for buildings, for enterprises. At the time, if you stayed in Hotel Mulia, Hotel Dharma Wangsa, Mandarin, El Meridian, that was provided by my company. All the internets.
Well done.
Yes. So, and happy customers. They've been with us a lot of time, right? They've been with our company for a very long time. And then some businesses use this as well. So it was a pretty successful business. I managed to sell it to other companies. And, I consider that a successful exit. There's another company that started because of that incubation of the true collaborations with the Autodesk and at the time Maya 3D application program. So we created a computer graphic animation studio. Wow. That was also very early. That was 2002, guys. But we work a lot with our architectural company. So a lot of the buildings developed in Jakarta, actually, their visualizations, their marketing materials and promotions is actually done by our companies as well. And that company turns into one of the first digital marketing company in Indonesia.
Halo teman-teman, terima kasih sudah menjadi teman setia Endgame. Cek rilis terbaru dari Future Narrators Merchandise Collection dan dukung terus misi kami untuk mencari ide-ide terbaik dari narator-narator keren lainnya. Link pemesanan ada di deskripsi. Now back to the show. Untuk anak-anak muda yang mau bikin startup, apa yang mereka harus lakukan supaya mereka jangan terlalu visioner? Atau mungkin nggak ada salahnya untuk jadi terlalu visioner. What's the moral of the story here? Karena beberapa usaha yang Anda lakukan itu terlalu visioner kan, nggak nyambung kan supply and demand-nya kan, mungkin karena jembatannya belum ada. Tapi bukan berarti anak-anak muda tuh jangan terlalu visioner kan, intinya bukan begitu kan. Visi itu penting kan.
Betul.
Tapi visi itu kalau bisa dibikin lebih tajam.
I put that,
ya kan?
Localize it, right? Yeah. Sebenarnya itu paling penting. For me, the learning from that is when you have vision, sometimes you get to also jadi become too narrow because you look at certain successful cases from other countries gitu. Kita bisa lihat di Amerika, kita bisa lihat di China, kita bisa lihat di Jepang gitu. When I first start gitu di Jepang kan, makanya kan, broadband internet available for all consumers. At the time gitu, waktu kalian semua itu 256 kilobits per second, di Jepang udah 10 megabit. Itu kan udah multiple times gitu kan. And I said, wow, gila ini harus nih di Indo nih. Semua orang pasti mau pakai nih. Oke, terus kita kerjasama dengan itu di Technology Center. Kita kerjasama dengan Telkom. 1 megabit, tahu nggak berapa harganya per bulan? 40 juta.
Selesai. Nggak bisa.
Iya, gimana coba? Terus, itu. Jadi pas kita ngelihat, kita harus sadar juga. Sometimes the visions, sometimes the case study that happens somewhere else, itu we have to see the reality-nya, application-nya. Apakah marketnya sekarang satu? Udah siap belum? Mereka butuhin belum? Oke, kalau marketnya sebenarnya tahu pasti butuhin. Oke, fine. Infrastructure-nya udah ready belum? Regulations-nya sudah ready belum? Itu harus juga dipelajarin gitu, bahwa kita harus lihat the readiness of adoption. Itu udah harus siap. Baru kita ngelihat apakah kita bisa address the customer needs. Nah, kalau bagi teman-teman ya, entrepreneur gitu ya, address the market needs, address the infrastructures, kalau itu semuanya sudah dekat, baru kita bisa kerjain. Nah, cuma satu lagi, banyak orang juga ngelihat, yang contohnya nih, co-working space. The market needs not even there yet. The market's not even belum kepikiran gitu. Jadi mereka aja masih bengong, oh ini ada kayak gini toh, iya, oke. Terus mereka pakai sekali, 2 kali, habis itu lupa. Karena mereka, it's not their needs yet. It's cool, they love it, but it's not their daily needs yet. So the pain point's not even there yet.
Betul.
Jadi jangan lihat kalau udah sukses di negara lain, itu necessary sukses here. Harus dilihat, is the people pain points-nya itu sudah ada belum? Is the people wants to actually go there? Kalau udah ada pain points-nya and you understand that you have the ability to address that pain points and the infrastructures is ready, let's do it. Or close to it, let's prepare for it. Ya, itu sih penting sih.
Anda udah melewati beberapa startups sebelum ke Dana kan. Sekarang kita ngobrol mengenai Dana deh. Ya kan? Kalau saya perhatiin Anda tuh suka ngobrol mengenai beberapa, anggaplah prinsip terkait dengan keterbukaan. 2, terkait dengan kepercayaan. 3, terkait dengan talenta. Ngobrol deh mengenai masing-masing.
Okay. I always believe, and this is through a lot of learning that I had in my previous startup and ventures juga ya. And also back again, my deep passion in why am I doing what I'm doing. I always believe in giving people opportunity to fulfill their highest potential. And that's always been, at the end of the day, that's my true passion. In how I can fulfill my full potentials, and after that, how I can help others, gitu, my team, the people that I work with, to reach their full potentials, and then now it reaches out as well, how we can help our society to help fulfill their highest potential. So, one, in order for us to fulfill potentials, then we need to also start to make sure they trust us, right? And when we start about, first thing is our team, how can the team trust us? Itu penting sekali. Kalau, when you don't trust, then you're not going to give your all. Then your potential might not be seen. So, transparency, itu salah satu yang paling penting di perusahaan. Karena with transparency, there's not going to be bureaucracy, there's not going to be politics, there's not going to be something yang pokoknya, enggak lah nanti maunya yang ini cuma ngomongnya kayak gini.
Yeah.
It's not about that, right? It's about, hey, we all here together because we believe in the same dream, want to achieve something, let's give it our all. So transparency is very important. Yeah. And because of transparency, the trust can be built. Gitu. Ya, kepercayaannya selalu sekarang udah ada nih. Nah, dan kepercayaan, it's something that it has to, once again, right? It's I love to use this word, resonate with everyone. So one of our culture, most important culture, is integrity. And when we said integrity, it's integrity on all level, right? And because with integrity internally, that means we can give integrity externally.
Sure.
Then everybody not only can trust us because we're doing the right way, and the team trusts each other because we know we're doing the same thing together. At the end of the day, and the result of it is that the society will benefit for it. So that's why it's such an important word. So karena kita udah kepercayaannya udah di sana gitu, that's why then all of us can work together to achieve the vision faster and better. That's why the high potential for me, it's all about.
Right. Okay. Terus Dana ini kan udah memiliki anggaplah hampir 100 juta users.
Close to it, yes.
Yeah,
but
kan?
yes, we should
Hampir
be
lah,
reaching in the
kan?
next few
90
weeks.
sekian kan.
Yes.
Mau diangkat lagi ke berapapun, saya ngelihat tuh digital payment di Indonesia ini masih kecil sekali.
Yeah.
Ya kan? Saya tuh selalu ngelihat ke Tiongkok, di mana digital payment itu lebih dari 2 kali ekonominya. Ekonominya aja 13 triliun dolar.
Yeah.
Jadi 2 kali itu 26 triliun dolar.
Yep.
Indonesia ini masih di bawah 10% dari ekonomi.
Yep.
Naik ke 2 kali aja dari ekonomi itu udah 20 kali. Iya kan? Apalagi kalau ekonominya dalam 5 tahun ini naik 2 atau 3 kali. We're talking about multiples of 40 to 60.
Yep.
Jadinya ini nyambung dengan apa yang Anda sering sampaikan. Mbok, jangan terlalu kompetitif. Mbok, kalau bisa kita lebih kolaboratif. Iya kan? Coba deh cerita semangat-semangat itu.
Okay. This is one of the things that for me, important enough also in terms of our strategy and everything, right? Yang penting itu sebenarnya kan kita harus sadar, we are still in the very early stage.
Yeah.
Itu yang semua orang. Maybe some of the companies you can see might be already so big gitu. Ada potentially ada one coming up for IPOs as well, right? And yang bisa menjadi one of the most valuable company in Indonesia. Yeah. Cuma if you take a look into the bigger scope of things, we're still in the very early stage.
Yeah.
And when we're still at the very early stage, the most important job all of us can do is to educate the market.
Yeah.
Kan? Kalau kita educate together, that means the adoption is going to be faster. So, I truly believe that right now it's not what we call it competition.
Yeah.
It's really what we call it competition or collaborations. Yeah. Because our job, all of our job, is to grow a market share so that the whole society can adopt faster. And when we have more, people call it competitions, I actually believe that we actually have a collaborator in educating the market together. And once the market become digital native, right? Itu kalau semuanya udah mulai very provisioned in use, all these digital tools in daily life. When more than 60% of the population started to reach that maturity, adoptions, then you can call it competitions. But we way,
nascent,
too early for that.
Terlalu premature.
Yeah, it might still take about 3 to 5 years to achieve that. And
At
Indonesia.
Least.
Is the fastest actually is already in Southeast Asia in terms of digital payment adoptions. If you take a look, we're actually already either on par or overtaking Singapore. We're better than any other countries around the regions. In terms of adoption velocity, we're actually also faster than India. And China is because they're already up there, right? They're already the majority of the population is already using these digital payments. But Indonesia is actually going to be the fastest around in the region. So if we're all believe that, so really it's not time to talk about how to each other market share. It's all about to grow the market together.
Do a compare and contrast amongst China, India, sama Indonesia.
Okay.
Adopsinya beda kan masing-masing. Yang paling cepat banget kan Tiongkok kan.
Yeah.
Nah, why is it that we're so much lagging dibandingkan Tiongkok dalam konteks adopsi? Dan India juga nggak cepet-cepet juga gitu loh.
Nggak cepet-cepet juga sih. I think it has to do because, China started earlier, right? Because China is, they're a very close country where, all the homegrown technology are managed to actually compete or, compete or collaborate with each other until they become such a big groups or tech companies yang can impact social, they have a big, very social impact and they have big society impacts. But Indonesia, one is the difference because Indonesia is also in a very open market, right? Yeah. And so basically there is a lot of technology players globally that can actually do their business in Indonesia. Yeah. So sometimes, early on before the current stage of all the, very successful technology companies, right? We tend as a consumers to be, let's just use the product is done by all of these, foreign players. Right, we get our social media, for example. Right, I mean, why do we need to start our own? We can always use them because they're already so big. Our, at the time, gaming, social media, business applications. Why do we have to do it ourselves? Because somebody else already do it better. Okay, we tend as a consumers to get we don't trust our own yet. That's why we used the offshore platforms. Terus, then we go into this, what we call this technology shift, in terms of e-commerce, in terms of digital financial services, in terms of, in the future it's coming up, the crypto tokens, right? Yep. And then we started to see, it's like, hey, you know what? The platforms that we seen from overseas, the platform that works over there might not address the needs of Indonesia. For example, right, Indonesia have so much UMKM, SMEs. Yep. Indonesia is very big in a lot of small businesses that caters to very specific set of people. For example, Indonesia has 67 million SMEs. India doesn't have even the ratio of the populations and the SMEs. It's less than Indonesia. Yeah. I think India, if I'm not mistaken, is less than 50 million SMEs, something like that. Yeah. So then the nature is already different. So then when people trying to adopt, and I remember last time, right? eBay trying to open their business in Indonesia, other businesses, there is Buy.com or many others trying to Indonesia. It didn't work. Nggak nyambung. So then people started to realize, like, maybe if the needs is different, then we should start our own. Right? So then when it started, it's like the e-commerce companies, the marketplace companies started to open and they become, big over time pretty fast. Yeah. It's like over past 10, 11 years, right? So they become very successful. Then people started to realize, hey, we can do it. we can do it. We can do it our own. So then why not? We just started with the other areas, then started the digital payments. And then also we realized like it's a very, very country specific, very localized specifics. So then we are also trying to do it our own. So that's the thing, right? So that's the difference. We actually come in later than China. But if you take a look into when we started and the adoptions, we're actually even faster than China in terms of adoption change of when we started. And China started a long time ago because of they're closed. And we're started later because we're spoiled by the others. And India is in between. India is between China and us. So they started earlier than us, but then they also have open to everyone, but at the same time, the government also started to limit who can enter and not. That's why they've been a bit slower than us. But us, the biggest change that I experienced recently is that the government started to actually support this initiative of digitalization. And that's happened in the last 5 to 6 years, right?
Kelihatan banget.
Government really started to see that this is important. I was at the Bank of Indonesia meeting a few days ago, and one of the top 3 pillars of Indonesia next important prioritization is one of them is digitalization. So the fact that the government is fully supportive, and really not supportive in just saying it, but really supportive in actions, the regulations, the dialogue, the support, the collaborations with the market industry that we're having right now, it's better than even most countries.
Penting
globally.
Untuk mereka bisa menunjukkan keterbukaan, ya kan, terhadap apapun lah, progres ataupun inovasi. Kan? Jadi kalau saya lihat memang oke lah, to be fair, kita tuh mulai dari base yang kecil sekali, makanya adoption rate ini tinggi sekali kan. I mean, one would expect within logic that this would decelerate. Kalau saya ngelihat tuh ada beberapa batasan yang cukup struktural. Ini tergantung secepat dan sejauh apa kita bisa mengedepankan literasi digital. Yang kedua, bagaimana kita bisa mengawal hygiene digital. Ya kan? Ketiga juga, kalau menurut saya tergantung uang beredar. Iya kan? Mau kita jungkir balik kayak apa, ya adopsinya tuh akan secepat sejauh uang yang ada. Iya kan? Tapi kalau uangnya itu terbatas, cuman segitu-segitu aja, tanpa ditingkatkan, ya kita mau jungkir balik 24 kali, ya cuman dapat segitu. Ya kan? Coba ngobrol deh, Vince, mengenai literasi, hygiene, dua-duanya digital ya, dan yang ketiga mengenai uang beredar.
Okay. Let's start with the literacy, right? I think in regards to literacy, so here's the thing, right? Kalau kita pertanyakan apakah digital itu sudah adopted by most Indonesian, and this is a funny conversation that I had for the past few years. Kalau people tanya, hey, have you connected to internet, or do you use data service? Most of the people say yes, but some of the people, in older generations or some rural people said no. Tapi kalau dia tanya, udah pakai Facebook belum? Udah dong. Udah pakai Instagram atau WhatsApp belum? Udah dong. Okay. So, to be honest, you are already digital literate, right? You are already digital literate, but you are limited into certain categories only. Karena that's what you feel is that's relevant to you for now. And if I ask, seriously, if I have Facebook, it's like, hey, how many Indonesian actually use your service? They already said 200 million. Oh, okay. I mean, basically, that's almost everyone, right? Because the 50 million could be the 60 million can be the older generations or babies, right? Which is very difficult. Okay, so then the majority of the population is actually already digital literate, but then how can they are digital literate in the things that can impact their life and to be better, which is, for example, digital financial literacy. And that's still very low. And we have a measurement, right? We have a survey that the digital financial literacy in Indonesia is actually between 25 and 50%, where the needs of financial inclusion is actually 60 to 90%, right? So there is a big gap in there. So then, basically that's all our job, right, in the market, to make sure that the literacy is there. So the fact that there is a gap, and the gap is we feel it when we feel it in a really practical world. Kita dulu gitu, waktu kita mulai gitu Dana, kita did one event, a very big event called Jakarta Fair. It was very successful, and kita very aggressive karena kita baru ya, we just started, and we want to tell to the people, hey guys, we're here, and with this digital service you can benefit a lot. So we give a very aggressive promotions. Anyone who entered the Jakarta Fair, and if you buy using Dana, you get 50% cashback for your tickets. That's great, right? I mean, who wouldn't want it? I mean, we thought it's like, at least like 50 or 60% of the population will definitely use us. And why? Because we're just thinking, the adoption of smartphone in Indonesia is about 40 to 50%. So maybe there's the 50% doesn't even have smartphone. So susah gitu. Ya udah nggak apa-apa, kita pikirnya di situ aja. At the time, the adoption was only 15%.
Wow.
And we were like, okay, why? So we feel it on the day 1, day 2, right? It was a whole month event. So I actually go down with my team and it's like, take a look at what's going on in the market. So we take a look, all of this generation millennial and generation Z, they immediately, install Dana on the spot.
Tapi yang tua-tua enggak.
Install terus dipakai. Terus di belakangnya ada ibu-ibu, pas di belakang anaknya. Gitu. Mereka udah gitu. Terus we ask ibu-ibu, ini bisa loh, mereka udah pakai loh, dan mereka dapat 50% cashback. Ibu bisa masuk ke dalam, bisa pakai cashbacknya untuk belanja makanan, minuman, jadi bisa sampai gratis loh Bu, kan enak juga gitu kan. Enggak, kenapa? Ribet.
Iya, skeptis.
Tapi ibu, smartphone ibu udah smart, itu udah Samsung loh yang high-end, itu langsung dapat. Enggak, ribet. Sampai nggak ngerti gitu, gimana ya cara ngomongnya.
Wow.
So,
biar anaknya ngomong sama ibunya.
Kalau ada anaknya, that's what happens. Anaknya convert the parents, so that works itu. Cuma kalau yang nggak ada anaknya sendirian nggak bisa. So that's what we realized. Wow. So literacy adoptions, it's not all about value propositions, but it takes times for people to get comfortable with it. Mereka punya kesan ribet. Kedua, ini apa nih? Saya nggak percaya. Nanti tiba-tiba dibohongin
skeptis.
Gitu. Data saya diambil kayak gitu-gituan kan. Which is in our case impossible because we have a very high standard of data privacy. We actually don't even have access to the customer data privacy, data ourselves. We're very, very high standard. Jadi because of this literacy, then there is an issue of the adoptions on certain things. But in terms of whether or not they're digitally literate, they already are. You just have to make sure they understand. You can now use it more than just this. Second tadi about
hygiene.
Okay. In regards to hygiene, I always told my team, and then I think they hear it from me quite a lot. Data purpose is not to make you to be online. For example, like this, right? People always measure by this. How many hours you spent online in your platform versus the others. So for example, if you ada gitu calculation ya. Kalau di Indonesia sekarang rata-rata itu sekitar 3 jam ya, kalau nggak salah, online ya. 3 jam online in a day. And kalau orang sekarang measure-nya, kalau from the 3 jam we can take like 20-30%, that means we're successful. In Dana, we said we want you to use as little time as possible in Dana because our intent is to make sure that when you use us, it can be as fast as possible. So the shortest time possible for you to complete a transaction or complete a financial needs, that's our metric. So because of that, we're very specific in saying that we don't want to give you, sorry to say, what we call it, konten yang membuat ketagihan. Addictive content. No, we don't want that. We want is basically content that only relevant for your needs.
Fungsional.
For that purpose only. So there is no such thing as taking away your attention so that you can get stay in our platform as long as possible. That's not the intention. We don't want to clear all of that. That's why in terms of hygiene, it's very important for us to be clean. Very important for us to be integrity. That's most of all very important, right? So there is no such thing as driving, for example, gambling, for example, pornography, or like very extreme contents. No, out of our service completely. Because first, we want integrity, and children can use our platform too. So we don't want to influence those children. So hygiene is very important for us.
Dan aplikasi Anda juga tuh hanya memerlukan 30 megabyte kan?
We are one of the lowest.
Very, very low.
Yes.
Ya kan? Requirement.
It's important because if you want to achieve scale, the mass, we want to make sure that even this lowest spec of phone can adopt our applications. Kalau nggak, if you have 200 megabyte, 300 megabyte itu banyak phone-phone yang kapasitasnya nggak cukup. That's why it's very important for us.
Dan itu nyambung ke inklusi keuangan.
Yes.
Ya kan? Which is the third point. Ya, jadi uang beredar ini.
Yes.
Kita tuh bisa ngobrol banyak mengenai inklusi keuangan, tapi kan subtle sekali perbedaannya antara akses ke duit sama akses ke duit yang cukup.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Okay. So I agree what you're saying, right? I mean, in Indonesia, I think the circulation of money is still lower than what it should be.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of it related to the inefficiencies. For example, right now, I heard, right, if I'm not mistaken, 3 triliun just for our Bank of Indonesia to distribute money all over, cash gitu, tunai ke all over Indonesia. And that's just, new money distribute. When you talk about the circulation of the money, banyak sekali masih retailer gitu yang mass retailers, in order for them to receive money from their outlets, it can take 2 to 5 days. So it's very slow. Because of the slow velocity of the movement of these transactions, because of the settlement time, reconciliation time, collection times, jadi the circulationnya itu masih inefficient, masih small. This digital is one of the best way, the only way actually to accelerate that. Imagine now it comes in time when you get paid, when the merchant get paid, you actually receive the money right then, right now. You can use it right then.
Right.
You don't need to put your money into a bank again, and then you don't need the money in the bank account, for example, to you do need it in a digital way. I'm not saying it, but not physically. You don't need to go to the bank branches to store the money, and then you can use it for later on to pay for your bills, to later on for pay your suppliers and everything, to transfer your money out gitu. Apa kalau if you don't go through the bank, you go through money transfer kayak Westcell, can have it, those kind of services. It can get into a bit pricey. So then one, the velocity, the acceleration is going to be there. 2, the cost associated with it. A lot of people don't realize that. And this has been researched globally. And we're going to work together with Universitas Indonesia to do a research together for Indonesia. The cost of cash handling.
Mahal.
There is an article globally and said the cost of cash handling itu between 5% to 15%. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think cash is actually the most efficient. It's not. It's the worst. It's when you receive money, in cash, there's so many that can go wrong with it, that the cost associated with it is 5% to 15%. Okay, what can go wrong? Fake money, money broken, money stolen, reconciliation error, or there's a phishing now. There's basically penipuan. So there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it that can be associated into cash handling that people don't realize it before. So we're gonna make a study about it, and especially for Indonesian market, and see understanding in the real market how much its cash handling cost is. And with digital, it's practically zero. 1, the cost is almost zero because it's so much efficient. 2, and people still have a big misconception. It's actually more secure. It is more secure in the right way. It is more secure. third is actually one more thing. You have a transparency. It's faster for you to process it. So your business, you know how long one business actually to reconcile every day just to make sure their accounting books and their invoices and their bank accounts is the same. Takes hours. With this, it's real time. So
saya tuh pernah di Tiongkok 2 tahun yang lalu di salah satu kafe gitu. Saya udah ngeluarin tunai. Saya mau bayar, ya kan? Dia agak-agak ogah gitu loh. Terus kebetulan teman saya yang ngeluarin QR code gitu. Dia lebih mau terima pembayaran pakai QR code. Saya tanya kenapa? Iya, kalau saya terima tunai saya harus rekonsiliasi di ujung hari gitu. Jadinya itu nyambung lah dengan penjelasan Anda. Nah ini kalau saya lihat ini mungkin saya mau angkat ke level yang lebih ini lagi ya. Unicorn. Ini udah semakin banyak, ya kan? Dan saya tuh percaya kalau literasi digital, hygiene digital, terus kita benar-benar tuh memikirkan mengenai solusi atau resolusi untuk supaya uang beredar itu lebih meningkat. Nggak ada alasan untuk kita tuh nggak melihat 100 unicorn dalam 5-10 tahun ke depan. Ini di akhir tahun ini aja udah ada beberapa nih yang baru, yang second tier. Nah, saya mau ngobrol mengenai bagaimana kita memastikan bahwa ini untuk kepentingan rakyat. Selama ini kan perusahaan-perusahaan yang besar nih didukung ibarat dari dana-dana dari luar kan. Modal dari luar. Gimana kita bisa memastikan selama kita mendemokratisasikan modal, mau itu datang dari luar atau dari dalam, tapi yang paling penting adalah untuk kepentingan rakyat atau masyarakat luas. Put that in the context of Dana and what Dana is doing.
Okay. It's a very important understanding, right? That entrepreneurship or startup is a very risky endeavor. Right? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think we discussed a lot about how it could go wrong. In our conversation before, right? Market to capability needs, infrastructure readiness, regulations readiness. Too much ahead of time, people might not need it. There's so many factors that can make an entrepreneurship or startup might not work. So because of this risk, we need to make sure that there is what we call as much as possible opportunity for everyone to get as much funding available globally, not just locally, to make sure that we can go into the next successful startup. So in venture capital world, right? 1 out of every 10, for example, is only expected to be successful. But that's one company could be 20x. So that's why it takes over the rest of the risk. And if you put that in a context that we can only open it for local investors, first of all, the understanding, right? Local investors are used to a very much already long-lasting sustainable business for a long time, right? P&L, and also second thing is in regards to the ability for them to exit, to liquidate their investment as soon as possible. In Indonesia, yes, the market started to become very good, right? I mean, we've seen some very, very successful unicorn level or exit, but it's still very new. So the comfort level of them of having this into very BAU, day-to-day, popping up, liquidation or exit or IPOs kind of scene is still very new. So now, because of understanding that there is still not let's just say everyone in Indonesia can buy into this yet, even though most of them already started to. And also, still, even if all of them are ready, as a market, Indonesia, it's still part of, even no, we're not small, but the global is still much bigger. So it's very, very important that we as an entrepreneur have as much potential asset as possible globally.
Yeah.
And the thing is, here's the thing, right? Especially in Indonesia. A long time ago, like 10 years ago, people would say Indonesia is only good if you have blue chip companies that is already have profitable, you have a good balance sheet or financial reporting, and you have close to the top of the rank in your business ranking or in your landscape. Now, everyone's looking at Indonesia as really a country of very hot startup that potentially can be the next unicorns. That not only potentially can have really, really good way to be unicorns. So we're sexy.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, why not just let it easy for everyone to race globally?
Yeah.
Because the key is it's not how to make it. It's not to prevent global investment to come. The key is how to make sure when they started to come in, how do we make sure that they come in for investment purposes only, not to control certain things that is valuable to Indonesia. For example, right, data sovereignty.
Sure.
For example, right, it's the rights, the IP protections, intellectual property protections.
Right.
Data sovereignty, intellectual property protections, and how it actually encourage to grow local talents.
Right.
So if we can address all of these three, why would we try to stop it? We should open it as much as we can.
I agree. Dan saya ngelihat postur untuk data protection di Indonesia dari sisi regulasi ini menuju ke apa yang sudah dipeluk oleh Eropa, the GDPR.
GDPR,
ya kan? Yang menurut saya sih jauh lebih indah, lebih konservatif daripada apa yang mungkin kita lihat di Amerika atau di tempat lain. Itu secara nggak langsung memberikan comfort untuk kita yang mau mengibarkan bendera nasionalisme apapun lah ya. Terus yang kedua juga tadi intellectual property. Mungkin kalau yang ketiga, ini terkait dengan talenta. I might even go further untuk mendemocratize talent, supaya talenta lokal itu juga bukan hanya bisa di-nurture oleh kita, tapi oleh siapapun dari luar. Iya kan?
Completely agree.
Jadinya exchange of ideas itu penting untuk mendemocratize talent. Dan saya ngelihat modal sih mau datang dari mana aja, oke-oke aja. Ini demokratis kok. Tapi selama kepentingan nasional, ini dikedepankan.
Agree.
Ya kan?
Agree.
Okay, let's spend the next few minutes on your end game.
Okay.
Kita biasanya narik jauh nih, tahun 2045. What is Vince's end game? Atau what is Dana's end game? Talk about that.
Okay. I said very early on, right? For me, it's the most important part of doing this is how to fulfill a human potential. And especially, I truly believe that Indonesia, actually, and we all been saying about this, Indonesia is one of the most potentially high country in the world. But for the last 50 years, we always said that all the time. High potential. Cuma kenapa kita nggak pernah gitu?
Aktualisasinya
gitu kan. Semua orang mau potensialnya tinggi. Cuma ya after 50 years, it's like kapan potensialnya gitu. So I think that's the thing, right? I truly believe now is the time. With the right time, with the right government, with the right young people mindset, the next generation mindset, it's time for us to fully realize that potential. And now it's like Dana is really, my wish is to be part of that in order to actualize the potential. And for me, that's why the end game is that I believe having a platform like Dana that can really help people's life, especially, we call it always daily financial needs, And when we say daily financial needs, that implicates who? Everyone. Everyone in Indonesia, whether or not you are Generation X, Millennials, Generation Z, whether or not you're big companies, small companies, SMEs, we all have a daily financial needs. And when we call about these daily financial needs, but these financial inclusions, right? And who are going to be most benefit about all of this? This is what we call the SMEs. This is what we call the mass populations. And when you keep talking about democratizing talents, I'm always talking about democratizing financial services.
Yeah, cool.
So everyone, anyone, if you want to start with 1 rupiah, you can do it. You want to start with 100 rupiah, you can do it. You want to have financial needs on certain things that is micro, you can have it. You want to have the ability to invest in any sort of instruments, gitu. If you have the know-how, you can do it. If you want to be able to have a credit, for example, because you know that you're good for it, you're gonna pay for it. You want to expand your small business into 2, 3, 4 outlets. You want to expand into different regions. Because you have a good business metric. You have the ability for you to pay back over time. Then you have a good financial management. Then you will be scored. You will have the ability to actually get a credit that you deserve. And all of this can be done when you started to go into what we call this digital financial ecosystem. Why? Because with this digital financial ecosystem, that all the data can be more transparent, all the data can be more real, all the data can be more accurate. And because of this ability for us to actually process this data, and this is very important, right? Processing this data doesn't mean that you're actually going to lose your privacy. It's not. Processing data is just understanding the behavior. Then everyone within the ecosystem started to going to be able to use their data for their benefit instead of someone else is using it for that entity benefit. Now, when I see that, my end game is that we realize this and we will see Indonesia in a different economic status than will be before. I'm really hoping that if we do this right in the next 2 or 3 or 5 years, Indonesia economic acceleration will go, like you said, right, could be into 2, 3, or 5 times than what we have right now.
Easily.
Very much.
Yeah.
And this is one of the way we actualize it.
I can't resist asking this last one. Kalau saya lihat nih banyak platform digital ya melakukan gamification, ya kan? It just seems like a must. Tapi kesadaran kita adalah banyak yang gagal juga dengan games. Without mentioning names, adalah satu pemain yang besar sekali yang terbukti bisa sukses mengedepankan games sebagai salah satu vertikal yang mereka lakukan. How important is it untuk Anda atau Dana untuk menggamify ke depan? Bukan hanya sebagai vertikal baru, tapi sebagai sesuatu yang bisa meng-supplant atau meng-complement vertikal utamanya, yaitu jasa keuangan.
I think that's the thing, right? Everyone have strategy. I mean, gamification is one of the basically marketing strategy. Once again, right? I mean, the conversation about how to make sure that you are remaining in certain ecosystem as long as possible. That could be a strategy, because when you spend most of your time in that environment, it is most likely the next things you're going to do. Whether or not in terms of commerce, whether or not in terms of payments, whether or not in terms of financial services, and then it could go to there, right? But also, there is a dangerous part, and which is I learned, because I have a company previously called Indomark, that's very much in gaming industry. We were actually the largest market share at the time in terms of gaming industry payment. And the issue that I learned from there is you might be stuck into that category. You might be perceived as, oh, you're actually a gamification company. So I will use you in that context. If there is anything I want to do relate into gamifications, I'll go to you. If I want to do other things that not relate to gamifications, then I'll go out. And that's a very costly learning because I have to restart the company again in order for me to get away from there. So I'm not saying it's a wrong strategy. I'm just saying it's a different strategy. But as long as you're comfortable, you know that you're going to be boxed into that. So then, hey, go for it because that can be a big enough box, right? But in our case, we want to make sure people understand that when you use us, it's really entirely for your financial needs, for your daily financial needs. So we want to be specific. We want people to understand. We want people to know that everything that we do is going to be related to that. So if you ever have that kind of needs, go to us. If you feel that what we give to you is address your pain points and your value propositions, then keep using us. And that actually can be shown a lot. What we did in the last 2 years, we cut down a lot of our promotion on our marketing campaigns, and we focus entirely on product building. Product quality, product buildings, addressing user pain points, and we've been growing more so than ever. In the last 1.5 years, we've grown more than 200%. Like I mentioned before, right? We're also we're close to 100 million users, and we have a very, very active, daily active users. We're doing more than 6 million transactions a day. We actually, in terms of talent pool, we're actually one of the top 3 companies according to Revo in happiness index. Because we're now back again, right? We're focusing on delivering what the customer needs in the right way, in the right mindset, and making sure we don't go out of that. So that's why I truly believe that will be the way that we're going to do things.
All right. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vince, for the time.
Thank you, Pak.
Oke. Teman-teman, itulah Vince Siswara, CEO dari Dana. Terima kasih. Inilah Endgame.